Hello, folks. Welcome to the third episode of Web3 series presented to you by Global Shapers community. This time, we have someone who will be giving us really good knowledge about Web3 plus climate sector. How can we go around in the amalgamation of Web3 and climate sector, and how can one get into a career and make one to solve real world problems in the climate sector? So, today we have Bhargav Patel. Hey, Bhargav, thanks for joining in.
Hi Ali, thank you for having me.
Cool, Bhargav. So, probably how about we get to know more about you? Can you share something about your work, your passion?
Sure. So let me start with a bit with my education background. So I did my undergrad from Ahmedabad University, and before starting my undergrad, I decided that I want to be a data scientist because that was the only keyword that excited me before joining the university. And as I started my university education, I decided to pursue machine learning and artificial intelligence. But down the track, I somewhere got introduced somehow, which I never thought to environmental studies, and which down the line got me to into the climate change. So during the university time, I was very passionate about working in the intersection of climate change and artificial intelligence. And at that time, AI was the very hype in the technology. And as I move forward, I become an AI engineer. Currently, I'm a staff AI engineer at Detect Technologies, which is a startup in the Chennai. And we work in the, let's say, a very niche technology where we build our for India's large scale, clients, and we use a good amount of machine learning in that as well. And during that time, I got introduced to Web3 as well, and Web3 was something very astonishing, like knowing how it works and what kind of power it gives to the user, not just limited to one single authority. And I guess it started my journey toward Web3 and climate change as well. So I never worked with on live project or something like that, but uh, Web3, I believe Web3 and AI would be the like shaping technology for the future. And this is something I'm very passionate about. And apart from that, I try to share that knowledge with the others as well, because somewhere in a previous day, I got a lot of guidance from the community, be it a tech community, be it let's say a community, environmental community. So I'm just trying to give it back to the community as much as I can. And yeah, that's all about me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Bhargav. Really helpful. And I'm very sure that folks are going to learn really great things from you going forward. So, my second question would be how can Web3 play a role in climate sector? How would you go around that?
Sure. So before going to how Web3 would play a role in climate change, let's just I'm sure in earlier sessions you guys have shared about Web3 is, but I want to give a one analogy. Why Web3? What is three in Web3? So Web1 was something like a static website where you can just read blogs and everything. That's a, I would say, blog, but news, information, and early internet. Web 2 came, which added read plus write. So you can share content, you can interact with the internet, and you can share things. Let's say writing a blog by yourself on some other platform. That's being Web 2. Web 3 is like read, write plus execute. So the central authority of power from a central authority has been given to the users, and now power is not at a central stage. It's been distributed in between people who are using that particular in the community or using the Web3 technologies. What Web3 has enabled is that, let me share some facts. Like climate change is a very old problem. Like it's not something came up in last 2 years. It was there. Scientists were observing it. They were warning it, but in industrial revolution we never paid attention to it. But in COP 15, which was I guess in 2009, if I'm not wrong, yeah, in 2009, they decided that will require $100 billion of investment to fight against the climate issues, right? It's been 15 years and only I guess 23 to 81 billion dollars has been just collected, and now the requirement is $1 trillion, which is not a small amount, right? And the earlier investment came from government and institution and large bodies. What Web3 has enabled right now is the role of retail investors,
Hmm.
because Web3 gives Web3 is like, people sometimes confuse this, let's say cryptocurrency is blockchain and Web3, but all three of them are separate, but they work in let's say interconjunction with each other to give power to the each and individual users. So now individuals can invest directly into environmental based projects. So let's say today, if I'm a person who knows what climate change is and I'm very concerned about it, which I am, and if I want to do something about it, now we say that a single person cannot do anything. But Web3 gives us a technology to connect with like minded people, and not just connect, but create a joint decision to help in the direction of climate change, let's say, technologies which are fighting against climate change, right? So if say let's say 10 people come together and they decide that we'll invest, let's say $1 million, so it's a combined $10 million. But doing it at a larger scale, let's say 1,000 people come together and they say, okay, we'll put some amount of money in a project which is related to which is helping developing countries to fight against climate change, right? So that thing they made it possible, and not just possible but transparent as well, right? So the big technology which is forming Web3 is about transparency, giving power to the users, and making things decentralized so that everyone can participate in decision making. And everyone who is participating, they would be responsible for their own decisions. So this is where the smart technology of smart contracts come into the picture, but we won't go into details of that. But this is what Web3 has enabled us to do, to give a unanimous decision, to be responsible for our acts, and to open door for the crowdfunding. And I guess the let's say joining this climate change fight by the retail investor would play a very big role, because if everyone does the little things, those little things combined together will create a bigger impact, because everyone has contributed to climate change, and developed countries have contributed more to climate change rather than developing countries. And it will also play a role in making an equality over there as well. So I guess there is a big opportunity to fight against the climate change using Web3 technologies, given condition that we understand the technology and we use it for the right approach, not just to build fancy apps and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Super helpful, Bhargav. And this gives us a really good idea as in where does Web3 come from, what can Web3 do in the climate sector, and most importantly, what can people look at by being a part of Web3 plus climate sector. So that was really informative. Probably my third question would be, what would be, or probably can you share some examples of your work that you might have done in the sector of climate sector along with Web3?
Sure. So if I talk about my professional life, my majority of work has been in the area of machine learning and artificial intelligence. But when I came to know about the technology of Web3 and how it enables, people, and how everyone can join it, I was so impressed that I wanted to work with it. So I independently pursued a project. It was in the time of 2021 when Web3 and NFT was at very much high. Like there was a huge amount of investment coming from institutional investors, retail investors, and NFT was a buzzword everywhere. It was trending on Twitter and a lot of social media. And our project was to create NFT, non-fungible token, for carbon credits. So those who don't know carbon credit is a token which you can compare it with the 1 ton of carbon. So let's say if my organization is generating 1 ton of carbon every day, then I need to buy one carbon credit when the policies are applied, proper policies are applied. And we need some system which can produce those carbon credits. If we talk about today, we said that trees consume carbon. Basically, they are consuming carbon from the air and putting it back into the land, and which is reducing the amount of carbon that is stored in the let's say our surroundings, which helps in reducing global warming gases, and it ultimately ends up in reducing the temperature of the entire planet. To do this at a larger scale, either we can plant more, which is doing a large scale plantation, which is slow and time consuming process. Second approach is to develop technologies which extract carbon from the environment and use it for some other purpose. Those are the two approaches. Now both of the approaches are very let's say capital demanding approaches, and a single person or single institution cannot do that. And to do that, we decided to launch an NFT collection, which will be a completely carbon negative, let's say, NFT collection, right? And we made our calculations how much amount of money would require to plant a tree and grow a tree for 15 years, how much carbon would it consume, and how any person who buys that NFT will be incentivized, and how they can verify that whatever the money that they have put in, it is used at a right place, right? So the best technology that Web3 offers is the backward traceability. So let's say if I invest in NFT, I can know who produced it, who resold it, and I can get a complete backward trackability to know the entire chain. And that's the transparency that is needed in today's time to believe in a project. And we started working on it. We had a good amount of progress as well. But as we move forward, we see there was a lot of let's say confusion, I would say, because I don't belong to more of a economical or economic background, and the policies which were around carbon credit, they were a pretty complex, and they are not yet finalized, not finalized, but they have not been put into mandate, right? In every, let's say, recently COP 28, I guess, still there is a convention about carbon credit and the ways to produce a premium quality carbon credits, but still it requires some more amount of efforts. But so due to that thing, we stopped our project. We said, okay, I need to be more aware of the entire ecosystem to come with an idea, because my expertise were a different domain. I was trying to do something in a different domain, but that project made me aware about a lot of things. And this is not the only project now. There are a lot of projects which are working in the similar domain. Basically, it is called building a carbon sequestrator, right, which consumes carbon from the environment and put it back to the land so that it can reduce the let's say gases which are warming up the environment. And ultimately, Web3 would provide a platform to generate a crowdfunding where everyone who has invested, they can incentivize on the basis of the project progress. And not just that, people can come together. There is something called as DAO, decentralized or autonomous organization, which are complete, as its name suggests, it's decentralized, is autonomous, and it is a group of people who want to take a, let's say, like-minded group of like-minded people who wants to invest their money or put their money in a way which, let's say, focused on a particular cost. So all of this combines, creates like opens the door for the entry of retail investors, which makes the project or any project which are in the domain of climate change much more accessible to the individual people.
Mm, mm, mm. Got that. Thanks, Bhargav. And probably what I'll do as a follow-up question would be, here you suggested what you worked on while you said about Web3 and climate sector in your role, or say in your one of your projects. Probably if we say, can you share some more examples about such projects that you have seen in other organizations or in other companies? Probably this will give us a really wholesome idea, as in what things are happening currently, or what are the
Mhm.
examples of projects that are up and running right now.
Sure. So I'm going to answer that question into two phases. First would be to give you an example of a company which are in the similar domain. So there's a startup called Reseed, RESEED, and what they are doing is, so I belong to India, and like currently I'm in Ahmedabad. So I have seen a lot of people farming, and if you look at farming as a perspective of carbon sequestration, they are actually consuming carbon from the environment and putting back to the ground. So if there is a big farm in your area, you will definitely feel a difference in the air. Like there is its air is little bit cooler, more let's say healthier to breathe, more oxygen in the air. So ultimately, every farmer who is like farming or using their land to produce any kind of let's say grains or anything, they are basically putting carbon back into the land. Now, what Reseed does is they collaborate with the farmer. They calculate how much carbon they are consuming every year, and on the basis of that, they assign a certain amount of carbon credit to them. And when a company or a, let's say, uh, any kind of organization who are exceeding their yearly carbon credit limit, they need to buy those carbon credits. It means they need to invest those amount of money to the projects where actually consuming the carbon, and that incentivize the farmers. So they have collaborated with a lot of farmers in other countries, and they are doing it at a great scale. So this was one of the innovative approach. So it doesn't require you to create a farm or any kind of thing. It's already there. You just need to find people who are doing it, make them explain about your thing, that hey, you are doing this, but there's also another way to generate income. So for farmers, they look at it as a way to generate income. For people who are running the business, for them, they're also, let's say, making the business more profitable as well. Plus, they are doing some adding some value to the society, right? And for the companies who are their customers, they are some way trying to offset their carbons.
Mm.
And as we move ahead, as the carbon credit policy gets more and more, let's say, accurate, or more and more precise and more and more mandatory, these things would be, let's say, a very much demanding thing. Because if you are exceeding your carbon credit limit, you need to put that amount of money to buy those carbon credits, which will increase your operational cost, ultimately increasing your product cost. And if your product cost is increased, customer would prefer it less. And if some company finds a more sustainable way to develop that product, you're going to lose your customers.
Mm.
So economists and policymakers are designing these policies in a way that once they're implemented, the market dynamics sets according to it, and companies are forced to reduce their carbon credits, sorry, carbon of what they emit. They should move to more renewable energy sources. They should make the product in more sustainable manner. They should distribute the product in more sustainable manner, and it should be an end-to-end cycle. So if they are even, let's say, they are using it for recycling it, or if they are using some material which is not so good for earth or in disposing it, they are going to penalize for that as well. But this
Mm.
requires a more of vigilant approach from the government side, and which is going to take a bit of time. Uh, it is in the process, but when you talk about global scale, things really takes time to get into the places,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was about one thing. Second thing is, we are talking about Web3 and climate change. Now, Web3 itself is more or less working with blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but in a way that it is distributed manner. And uh, if I share one fact, you might be knowing that, but Bitcoin is a very famous cryptocurrency, one of the oldest, which lay the foundation for decentralized finance. Running so Bitcoin is a virtual currency. It stays in the server. There's no physical thing as Bitcoin. And if something is staying in server, they're consuming the energy. So running Bitcoin for entire year, it is called causing more than, I would say, 150 terawatt or something like that energy, which is more than some countries. Like
Mm.
it's on the fourth rank of energy consumption, which is way too much.
Mm.
So currently, those who are responsible for building, let's say, this cryptocurrencies or blockchain, they are trying to make it more optimized. A
Mm.
bit of technical things. Those who are technical viewers, Bitcoin works on proof of work, which is a very much, let's say, and it is not utilizing the entire amount of energy it should use. Recently, Ethereum shifted to proof of stake, which is 99.9% more sustainable compared to proof of work. So companies are putting efforts to make their, creating blockchain or creating mining cryptocurrencies much more greener. There is the Solana cryptocurrency, which tries to use renewable energy to mine everything, because mining cryptocurrency is a very computationally intensive task. And when we talk about computer intensive task, it consumes energy which is coming from the fossil fuel. That makes cryptocurrency, let's say, less sustainable technology.
Mm.
So currently there is a focus on two things parallelly. One, making cryptocurrency much more sustainable by using renewable sources, by designing the algorithms or designing a system which consumes less energy, and utilizing those cryptocurrencies, and along with the Web3 setup,
Mm.
to give, let's say, people to offset their carbon credits. And
Mm.
this is where like It also help in reducing the income level inequality, and also difference between developed country and developing countries, because
Hmm.
developing countries have more natural resources which are unused, and developed countries are already used and they want that. So ultimately they need to pay developing countries that, hey, this is the amount of money that we give you to offset the carbon for us, and the the flow of money and entire economics of end-to-end flow of money would come into the picture.
Got that. Got that. Thanks, Bhargav. And probably to wrap the session up, I would say, what different types of paths would you say can one pursue a career in climate change through Web3? Are there options there? Yes, because we get a really good idea from the interesting ideas and startups that you just mentioned about. But then, how can one go around? Say, for example, if someone has a background in tech like you, or particularly Web3, how can one go around probably doing something in the sector of climate change?
Sure. So, one very interesting fact that about I learned in a university is from one of my professor, is that you need to combine two streams to see the what innovation can be possible. The very sad part is that me as an engineer, I always look at a problem from a perspective of algorithm or step by step approach to solve it, but I never care to gain knowledge in the different area. So when a technical guy is sitting with a non-tech person, they rarely talk because there is no, they don't understand algorithm. We don't understand what they are saying. For us, it's theory only. So if I'm sitting with someone who is designing a policy, I was like, okay, they are doing a lot of theoretical work. It's not something that I enjoy. They think that this guy is very nerdy and they just write algorithm and they just code and drink coffee. That's it. But when you combine those things on an actual level, on a practical level, you see a lot of ideas which are simple, effective, yet unimplemented, right? So if you have a knowledge of tech and you want to be in this domain, learn about first what crowdfunding is, how things work, gain an in-depth understanding of those, and then move towards understanding carbon credits and how economics works around carbon credits. That will give you a perspective of connecting your problem solving approach of your engineering knowledge to the real world problem which has been faced. And when you combine these two, believe me, there is a lot of opportunities to do. And that's not just in Web3. You take any engineering approach, be it chemical engineering, be it civil engineering, computer science, or any type of material science, anything. Once you actually combine that knowledge with the
Hmm.
practical problem that faced by humanity, or at a local level, at a global level, you actually come to see what thing you should do, what approach you should take. So I know I have given a very broad answer, but actually this is the approach that I always took. I just try to, because if there's a problem, there are thousands of solutions. We need to decide which type of solution we want to approach.
Hmm.
So learn about different aspects, attend different conferences on climate change, on carbon credit market, how carbon offsetting works, what type of technologies has been utilized. I remember one project while I was in college, and they are consuming carbon from the environment and they are developing ink. So
Hmm.
that was a pretty good use case of it. But also understand the entire end-to-end ecosystem as well, right? So this is my advice to those who wants to break into Web3 plus climate change. There's a humongous amount of opportunities.
Cool. Thanks, Hargav. Super helpful, as I said, and really helps us open the horizons, or say probably broaden the horizons to reach or to probably know what different paths can be taken. Just not one path, but as you said, there are a good number of solutions out there. You need to probably choose which way would you want to go through. And I guess the practical approach that you shared, which is like you can attend the conferences, meet new people, know about interesting things, and then choose a path, that sounds even more better, makes sense. So I mean, thanks a lot for sharing your work, for sharing about your passion, and also really great amount of information of what Web3 and climate change sector can do. As I said, I'm sure the viewers are going to love it, but really helpful. And thank you for being with us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope I'm been able to add value to the viewers whenever they watch it and they find it interesting, and it at least help a couple of people to get started with these things.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Bhargav.
Thank you.